Good afternoon. My name is Jelena Tašić Pizzolato, and I wish you a very warm welcome to the 8th episode of Sustainable After, an interview series brought to you by Loomish, a Swiss investment management firm. In these weekly panel discussions, our goal is to explore the ways in which the COVID-19 crisis could actually serve as the catalyst for change in fashion. Today, we're going to take a deep dive on the logistics and business model innovation side, as well as focus on a very innovative finalist of our recent Fashion Innovation Award. So without further ado, let me introduce Michael and Roberto. Michael Newman is the CEO of Returnity Innovations. He's also considered one of the leading experts in the transformation of logistics platforms, and he's also a senior entrepreneur who founded 3 different companies. Welcome, Michael. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
We also have Roberto. He's the founding partner of Luxury Tech Fund, but also a seasoned professional and entrepreneur in the fashion industry, both the product side and the media side as well. He's the founding partner of the Luxury Tech Fund, which actually focuses investments of next disruptive game changers in luxury tech ecosystem. And one of their main investments is in Vestiaire Collective. Welcome, Roberto.
Thank you, Jelena.
So kicking off our discussion, Michael, if you could introduce yourself a little bit more to our audience and tell us a little bit both about your career and what you do at the moment.
Very good. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I'm Mike. I'm CEO of Returnity, and my whole career has been around environmental policy and business. I spent actually the first 5 years of my career working in Washington, D.C., partly in government and partly for one of the biggest environmental policy nonprofits here in the country. My big goal in 2000 was to either get a job in the Al Gore White House working on environmental policy, or go and get an MBA, because I was tired of getting our butts kicked by big companies who weren't necessarily focused on sustainability. And eventually that election was called, and I ended up with the MBA. So my career since then has always been at the intersection of business and sustainability, and really finding a path for environmental sensitivity within the corporate world that can serve all the various stakeholders that are needed to make those sorts of initiatives successful. So I spent 8 years as part of the senior team growing what became the world's biggest mobile phone reuse and recycling company at that time, and then struck out on my own to start and fail at a bunch of different startups, as often happens. And but my most recent endeavor here is at Returnity, where we are making reusable shipping and delivery packaging for brands to replace single-use packaging, and that's what I've been doing for the last 3 years.
Right. Yeah, we're going to go deeper into detail about what Returnity does and how it impacts sustainability just in a moment. Roberto, you also have had a very interesting and diverse career so far. So could you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Yeah, sure, with pleasure. So, as I was born as an engineer, and then I went very quickly into industry, and basically I've been in the fashion textile industry for about 15 years. More precisely, I went in the silk industry, and so I've been dedicated from raw silk from China mills up to final transformation made in Italy for the most prestigious luxury brands. From textile industry, I have been for 3 years in a project with the Louis Vuitton group called the LV Journey. It was a 3 years project based on the 3 P letters, basically product, process, and perennity, which is, I believe in English, is maybe is a perpetuity, something like. So this was a very important project that introduced what is basically sustainability today, what is financial ethic requirement to be in in a filière of the luxury industry today. From industry, I went to licensing, and I basically opened my own business in US and expanding in Asia. I'm now in a joint venture with the Marie Claire Media Group to expand Asia, and I'm running two major projects. One is in Turkey and one is in India. 3 years ago, with other partner, we decided to create the phone, the luxury tech phone, and basically we acquire some interesting participation we can talk about, and we are now in administrating our portfolio and following this 4 or 5 acquisition we had.
Would you like to tell us a little bit more about the choices you made in the luxury tech fund and how it connects to sustainability?
Yeah, certainly. From the first beginning, one of the key words of our let's say criteria of acquisition was sustainability. But I want to tell you that somehow, since many years already, excellence, sustainability are part of the keyword. So I don't want to make it too, let's say, too unique, because this is something that we have not been unique in this field. But of course, sustainability was one key of the decision, and because we were running, we were interested in getting acquisition on particular business model, we wanted to understand what sustainability was from the first beginning. This is why, as you know, in our portfolio, we have been linked with industry. For instance, Devialet in acoustic is one of our major acquisition. And this is an industry with a very detailed sophistication, not only in patent and innovation, but in the way industry means today and for the future, as well as Vestiaire Collective, one of the major second-hand luxury good portal, where sustainability means to give life to a luxury product which was often abandoned in a wardrobe, and sustainability in that case means not wasting, means not overproduce, overbuying, but more giving a cycle of life to a nice luxury product, among others. And I would mention the last acquisition was DM Concept. DM Concept basically is one of the major fantastic project in France, which is the synthetic diamonds. Is a fantastic patent through innovative process. And when we talk about sustainability, this means something, because synthetic diamonds means exactly to escape of what diamonds mine mean today.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Roberto. I think very interesting diversification as well of the portfolios.
Yeah.
So Michael, if you could tell us a little bit more about Returnity. So how does it impact sustainability, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, Returnity, we were originally part of a reusable shopping bag business that was mostly making bags with company logos that they were giving away at trade shows or to employees. And one of those customers was ThredUp, which has since grown to be this huge buyer and reseller of used women's and children's clothing. And James Reinhart, the co-founder and CEO, he said he was buying these shopping bags, but he said, could you make me a reusable shipping bag? So that's actually where the whole thing started, was him just challenging us to come up with it. He liked it enough that he invested. He brought in other e-commerce leaders. And about 3 years ago, the company was split out to just focus on shipping and delivery packaging. our DNA was really was just figure out how to make this bag. And so in our early stages, and when I first was with the company, we're a product company. Here's our shipping packaging. Here's how we figured out how to replace cardboard boxes or poly mailer bags with a product that can work in the shipping environment. But we were struggling to get traction, and I think that what we learned through that was that the product itself was actually the least important in many ways part of what we were trying to do. And since then, we've really evolved into being more of what I call a systems company. So what that means in practice is that companies who aspire to replace disposable packaging need to think about their entire systems and supply chain and how they operate. And just coming up with a really cool looking reusable product does not mean it's going to make sense. It doesn't mean it'll be effective in the field. It doesn't mean it'll make sense financially. And so we work with clients to understand what we call their 3 Ps. What's the process? How is that packaging going out to customers and coming back? Is it simple? Is it low cost? How do you get maximum participation? So I can send you, I can deliver your clothing order in a reusable shipping bag, but if you then throw it in the garbage, it's not serving the environment better, and it's certainly not saving money. And then what is the package? What is the physical package that we design and manufacture that works best for that system? So, we've evolved into really this company that partners with brands to assess the whole supply chain and how they engage with clients and how goods move through their system, and figure out how, where, and when to integrate reusables, and where maybe it's not the best fit. So, it's I think a maturation and understanding that reusables require change. Change is hard. Change doesn't always make sense right now, financially or environmentally, but where are the best ways to apply it? And then we can manage those programs for those customers.
Great. That's really, a different way of doing things. Would you say that it has also to do a lot with customer education as well, or you perceive it more in a B2B manner?
Well, I think, what's been interesting for me, I think, over the last couple of years is to see how much interest we're getting from companies that's being led by the personal interests and desires of the employees within those companies as consumers themselves. So I think, whereas in the past it would have maybe been an initiative driven by the sustainability team or whatever they call that within these larger companies, now it's more the line operators. It's more the people with day-to-day responsibility who are coming on their own initiative and saying, like, we need to be doing something different. This is not working. For me, I'm worried about climate. I'm worried about, the environment. I don't like the type of resource consumption. We need to find a better way. And they're coming on their own personal motivation. I joke that Returnity is the best cocktail party company I've ever been a part of, because people have fatigue. They're very tired. It's very visible, right? You get all these deliveries, all these boxes, all this packaging. They have to just break it down and recycle it or just throw it away, or it's in their face all day, every day as they're getting these packages. So it's they're very aware of it as an issue. Of course, awareness of it being a problem and then having a scalable, actionable solution are two different things. So that there's that tension in there for us as a company and the problems we have to solve. But I think, and then just the sort of a final thing on that is that our packaging, when companies switch to reusables, customers really notice. The customer experience today of receiving a delivery in a poly bag or a cardboard box is so normal that they don't even see the box itself or the bag. So if you change the color or you print a message on it, or they literally don't see it. They see right through it. They open it, they know what it is, they know what to do with it, and they just do that action. They don't even see the packaging, which creates, we say our packaging wins the doorstep experience. And what we mean by that is you create this new relationship with your customer when it comes in reusables, because people pause and they say, well, what is this? This is different. this is exciting, this is interesting, you have an opportunity to create a new relationship and to educate them. So reusables solve a lot of problems, they create others that you have to work through, but I think that educating consumers on why it matters is not a challenge for us. Making sure that they follow through and take the action on returning the packaging is really where the ultimate challenge is, and where so much of our work is today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. We're going to go into details of that a little bit later. I would now like to ask Roberto a little bit more about the present moment, a very particular present moment that we are all living right now. So Roberto, you've been an insider to fashion's multiple aspects, so production, investments, media. Obviously, the pandemic so far has shifted many forces and many dynamics within the industry. So I would just like to ask you, how do you perceive the present situation, and what do you foresee to be the main changes to the industry that are going to be here to stay?
What I see is somehow it's simple, because we are in business, we were in the market, we were in very affected market. Of course, pandemic is global, but we have been heavily affected, of course, in Europe, in US, in Asia, and India, among others. What I see is somehow we have been in product, we have been in services, and of course, product has an escape line, which is called the online business, and very much affected whenever is offline business. So this is what you see at the first beginning. What you also see is that online portal, they make their own conditions, which are very strict, and they became even more strict in terms of commercial conditions. So they took some advantage somehow, let's put it in this way. What I see is the dynamic of the consumer behavior somehow. So this is something that we definitely need to take in consideration for the future whenever we want to launch a new product and services. Of course, what I've seen, I have a project which is in beauty. Both product and services, beauty salon, among others, under the brand Marie Claire. Let me tell you, this was of course very badly affected. I mean, beauty salons, hair, nails has been very much affected. Whatever you can manage at home, somehow you save, but for some reason, whenever you need a salon, we need the professional people, this was very badly affected. So once again, I think the consumer behavior will be the key. Somehow, for some reason, in Europe, for instance, we are now recently going back to hairdressing, to makeup, to nails, bars, and so on, which is not the case in other parts of the world still, but the attitude somehow has changed. Now, what I think is very interesting is the way we need to design these outlets, the way physical distance mean and will mean in the future, how to feel safe, to feel comfortable in a shop, in an outlet, in a salon. This is something that need a lot of elements to take in consideration, because the behavior somehow has changed, and is not only due to recommendation, is what your sensibility is today during this pandemic and after this bad time. So this is the way I see things, but of course I'm very much linked to artists, creative people, because during this time, I think more and more what you need is somehow creativity and sensitivity. So my point is more to move ahead, building and eventually rebuilding business and business model, but with more sensitivity, with more creativity, somehow I would say with more experimentality somehow. I think we need to go more and more through a workshop of ideas to really build a new behavior, a new attitude, a new environment, a new comfort zone. So this is where I'm now working on.
So, Mike, I was wondering if what Roberto is saying is something that you're also witnessing from your side.
Yeah, I think what we've seen is companies really expanding their commitment to looking at things differently rather than trying to pull back. You know, they're all trying to solve very immediate problems of keeping their customers and their employees safe and figuring out how to sort of see through this initial shock of what the pandemic has created. But it only has made them more sensitive to the longer term needs to do different, you know, run their businesses differently. And I think what we saw ahead of the virus was this shift. So 2 years ago, it was about 2 years ago, I remember we had a meeting with the head of marketing for one of the big fashion omni-channel brands here in the States. And he said, look, we'll put posts on Instagram about things we're doing for the environment, and everyone loves it, and they get all these likes, and it's very exciting. And then we'll put a product line out that's a little bit more expensive, but is integrating more sustainable materials and design choices, and people don't want to pay the premium. So, but in that 2 years, we saw that gap starting to close, and their customers were starting to commit with not just likes on Instagram, but also committing financially to their initiatives to do things with more circularity and sustainability. So that was kind of the momentum right up until the virus hit. I think the virus has created a lot of financial shocks, but it has only reinforced why brands were pushing in that direction. Their customers were coming too, and it's on a different sort of area of concern. It's health versus the environment, but I think consumers appreciate how those things are interconnected, and so I'm encouraged by I think the opportunities this will continue to create for a different kind of commerce model and a different level of responsibility that consumers and brands together are going to create.
And connecting to Roberto's point about the fact that people need that the comfort zones have changed in a way, and that people need to start getting comfortable again about different things. Could you share a little bit more about your product innovation? So you were mentioning earlier to me that you're looking into some new solutions that would actually, I believe, make people feel more comfortable about it.
Yeah, so one of the things that's been really interesting is to see the innovation that's happening on material design and manufacturing that can actually integrate protection directly into those materials. So we talked to over 12 antimicrobial manufacturers that were either making fabric themselves or selling materials that could be integrated into other fabrics or coated onto the fabrics to figure out what would be the best solution for packaging. And nobody to date has done it for packaging. They're mostly doing it with apparel manufacturers. So we are just about, I think, a week away from announcing a new partnership. We're going to be able to add it to all our shipping and delivery packaging. It's already been tested on COVID and proven to be safe for the virus and keep customers safe. So it's exciting to be able, and the other thing about reusables is that now it's because of that reuse, you can afford to integrate more capability. So if it was a single-use disposable bag where the whole goal is to have it be 1 penny or 2 pennies, of course you're not going to spend money on things like virus protection because your customer is going to throw it away and you can't afford it. But when it's a reusable, you can start to integrate
smart design in a way, because it will pay for itself as it's used again and again. And so that's both by adding this this new solvent that will be COVID, protective, but also in the ways we design it to minimize how it's touched, how it's opened, how air is, people can interact with the packaging and the products. You can create additional safety, and I think that's exciting for us to see how we can connect those things together.
Yeah, you will keep us updated about how that goes, because from what we see here, at least in Europe, it is something that has really a big space for growth, as customers are obviously getting more cautious. Roberto, in connection with what Mike was saying earlier, also about one of their biggest customer, ThreadUp. So you are in a way following a similar very important player, which is the Steer Collective. And especially during this pandemic, we have witnessed also a lot of investor confidence around that company. So they did mid-pandemic, they did actually a big round in investments and so on. So could you shed some more light for us on exactly where you saw the initial potential with that business model and that company in particular?
I can talk as an investor. I'm not the CEO, so I need to make this distinction. As an investor, we believed in the project from the first beginning, and of course, the company is expanding very much, and the success is really visible. But of course, we were excited from the first beginning. Of course, we were a team of Parisian people, Parisian investor, and the Steer Collective was born as a Parisian team at the beginning, which is not anymore. Now is such a global team. So the sensibility of luxury items was very strong. The sensibility of life cycle of a luxury item was very mature. We all commit on that. We were on the same page, basically. So we like the project. We like the project, but beyond what is just the platform to buy and sell goods, eventually second-hand luxury goods, specifically for this project. The business model was much more than a platform to buy and to sell. The business model showed from the beginning that the buyer and the seller were the center of the project, were the real value of the project behind the product itself. This is why brands are so interested in this project from the first beginning, and more. And basically, through the Steer Collective, brand know their client much more than they did in the past. Is a typical example when you sell a car. The moment you have sold the car, you don't have connection with your client. So how to get connected with your client if you don't know how he's driving the car for the next 5 years? So this is about what happened with luxury items. So the way the luxury item leave the shop or is delivered to the client, what happened the day after? This is what brands couldn't know. The product is certified through the Steer Collective, which is a key point for the buyer. Now, the Steer Collective is also trying to emphasize on credibility of buyers and sellers. So through this credibility, basically you can bypass the certification, which means that you can deliver much faster, that you can accelerate the process, that you can save in cost and so on. So, which is very interesting as an approach. But even more you know your buyer, more you know your customer, your sellers, more you know what they are looking for, but more you know what they have at home. So in this scenario, a group of stylists create their own story through what is available at home, at the seller's home, which becomes a fantastic platform to create story, to drive the trend, the style. So it's much more than a platform. What I want to say is a fantastic study of customer behavior through luxury product. This is my way of understanding, once again, as an investor and not as the CEO of the group.
Thank you, Roberto. Michael, a little bit connected in a way also with, so Roberto was telling us more also about the relationship between the investor and the company they invest in, and in a way also about the ecosystem. So Returnity, as we mentioned before, is one of our finalists for the Fashion Innovation Award, but you were also part of very important industry cohorts, so Fashion for Good, National Geographic Ocean Plastic Innovation Challenge. So how have these programs been instrumental to your success so far?
Yeah, they've been very important. You know, I think that the challenge, just in New York City alone, we use enough packaging to put a cardboard box around the Empire State Building every 4 hours. And that was actually pre-coronavirus. I'm sure it's even more frequent now. So the problem is profound. It's a huge issue of the amount of packaging that is used in the industry. But the people think of it as a product problem. Typically, it's like, well, you know, it's a bag or a box. Let's just make a better bag or a better box. But that's not, you know, ultimately how we're going to fix the impact from all of this shipping, because just adding a little bit more recycled content or making the box slightly lighter is only going to play at the margins. It's not really going to solve the problem. And so as we understood, as we matured, that this was a systems challenge, and the industry has started to understand that this is about systems and about how we move goods and how we interact with our customers. It's hard. It's really hard, and it doesn't change overnight. It can't. It shouldn't. You have to test and bring in all different kinds of stakeholders and educate consumers. And so those kinds of relationships with Fashion for Good and with National Geographic and others, I think are very helpful to us, because it gives us an opportunity to work on the problem at the pace that it needs to be worked on. And so if it was as simple as, here's a new box that's made out of, you know, this more sustainable material, and we've all won and we can go home and work on the next problem now, somebody would have already done it. But you need that kind of support to bring you into the, you know, the conversations with the partners who are going to, you know, be instrumental in your success. You need the financial backing. You need the patience and the awareness. You need all those things to tackle the really hard system issues. And so we've been really fortunate to be able to have those kinds of relationships, because they have really enabled us to get the momentum now that we have, and to be able to start to see the success in the field that wouldn't have happened without it, for sure.
So Mike, we mentioned the kind of the customer attitudes changing in a way, and then there is also the partnerships and the readiness of the system kind of to move towards more sustainable business models also. So do you think that this COVID-19 crisis has maybe revealed already some opportunities for brands, especially when it comes to shipping and logistics and packaging in general?
Yes, it definitely has. I mean, I think what we're seeing is that companies that are sensitive to, I mean, this is true for everything, right? I mean, if you're sensitive to your customers' needs and their fears and their wants, you're going to be successful, right? Like, and then you can develop products and solutions that meet those. And so I think that what this has shown is, for forward-thinking brands, is that you know, there's a huge segment of their customers now who are particularly vulnerable, whether because of their age or their underlying health issues. They're scared. They have, they have uncertainty. They have needs, and this is creating a new relationship for them. And so by being forward thinking and being sensitive to those needs and presenting them with solutions that can be, that can help protect them and create a strong relationship, they're building a better customer relationship. They're building sales opportunities. They're building relationships. And so, they may not have, I think what, as I sort of was speaking to before, there's this tendency to think of packaging as just the thing that everyone, particularly shipping and delivery packaging, secondary packaging, is this afterthought. It's a box. Everyone knows it's a box. It's how you do it. And so you forget how meaningful that interaction is, how important it is in your entire business operation, because you're used to doing it the same way forever. And the virus, the work we were doing was, I think helping to start before the virus to get companies and consumers to think a little bit differently. The virus has blown that entirely, blown that up, because now you have all these customers who, when they get a delivery, they let it sit for 3 days before they even want to touch it. And it's making companies think about it where they didn't have to before. But when they think about it, they find, oh, this is actually an opportunity for growth and strength and improvement. And so I think that's very exciting for us as a business, of course, because that's how we want everybody to think about this. We want you to pay attention. We want you to be aware, and we want you to understand that there is a better way you can do it.
Yeah, because it is a very important part of the famous last mile that somehow gets neglected in the process.
Absolutely.
So Roberto, continuing along these lines, and speaking about possible innovation that has been brought by the surge of sustainability trend, or the kind of the uncertainties created by COVID. So what are the main areas where you would like to see innovation when it comes to luxury and sustainability in the luxury sector in the forthcoming period?
I would. I'm very much in this direction. I'm very much committed with what the way I call it, positive contribution. You know what I mean? So what I have in mind is, of course, we have been through excellence. We have been through sustainability since many years already. Now the impact is very, very evident for many reasons, including the COVID, but not only, but just, of course, including the COVID. I'm more in the positive contribution of the brand. I'm more in a special project enhancing the brand value. I'm much more in commitment, for sure. I'm much more, as I said before, in customer behavior, attention to customer behavior. But to move forward, I think that what the positive contribution will be would motivate much more the approach of the community to a brand, just because through a positive contribution you will commit much more for your community, for the system you are involved with, and let's say, I would say that how to approach it, I believe, is much more through special projects. You know, the fashion system, they have been gone through changing the calendar, changing the way to show collection, changing the rhythm to produce and to show collection, which is somehow an obligation today, and for some other brand is a new message. I believe this is not what I have in mind. This is not the positive contribution. The positive contribution is how you commit with your environment, how you can enhance the creativity through a commitment, through the preservation through the promotion of a culture, of a territory. So this is what I believe would be the commitment for the brand.
And do you see it along the same lines when it comes also to the media? So looking at the fashion media, how do you see that that dynamic shifting?
Well, my own experience, my personal experience is more okay, through the group I'm in touch with since many years. Of course, Marie Claire is a group committed to women, so there is a language, there is an attention to women since ever. I would say over 50 years of commitment. Now commitment is nothing really new at this level of media group, but of course, on the top of it, you have to put more sense, more meaning, more value. I would say that I don't want to go back to my wording, but somehow the positive contribution is the key word under my lecture.
Thank you. I keep it as one of the highlights and key takeaways. So drawing slowly our discussion to an end, Mike. So over the past few months, we've heard a lot of optimism and a lot of worrying voices also when it comes to the effect of the pandemic on the sustainability efforts so far. So how do we, from your perspective, how do we ensure that sustainability remains high on the agenda of brands despite the crisis?
Well, I think, what we saw driving a lot of our business before the virus was CEOs or C-suites setting these 2025 goals. And they're saying by 2025, 100% this, 100% that. And then their teams of operators coming to us and saying, somebody signed me up for this and I have no idea how we're going to do it. And so I think what's happened with the virus is that we had a month or two of shock. Everyone was all of a sudden at home. They didn't know what the future held. And now I think as people are settled in a little bit, the future is still uncertain and there's a lot of pain and challenges ahead. But I think that what I'm hopeful of is that target that seems far out, but isn't that far out, is only redoubling the commitment of brands to start now with the planning and the testing and refinement so that they can get to that place, because they know it's not there today. If it was there today, they would have done it already. And they have to be committed to that kind of experimentation. And so I think that now that the shock has sort of resolved a little bit, they are showing commitments in projects that we're working on that have the right, I think, approach to testing and learning. And they have this additional, I think, commitment now because as I spoke to, sustainability and the virus are connected in ways that I think people, very much appreciate. And so I'm very hopeful. I think that it is, it slowed us down a little, but it's ultimately going to actually create more opportunity for us. And I think companies are empowering their teams to see this process through because they think it's good business, not just good stewardship.
Thank you, Mike. Roberto, any closing words from your side? So how could the industry ensure that sustainability remains high on the agenda?
I think once again is challenging. I think beside the tragedy is always a possibility of creativity. There is always a possibility of creativity. I'm very much, I told you before, I'm very much close to artists and creative people. During this time, I understood the power they can put on a table. The creativity is a fantastic key of lecture, is a fantastic interpretation of what sensibility is. And I think there is a need of sensibility in what we do whenever we want to enhance our brand value. So my key point is certainly the beauty somehow is a key word. I think we need to consider that the world is beautiful, and basically the beauty is the key, and how to get sensitive to it. I think artists would collaborate much more and even more than now with brands to make it to make this world more beautiful.
Thank you, Roberto. Opportunity and sensitivity in a way as the key highlights. So I thank you both very much, Michael and Roberto. It was great talking to you, and I'm sure that our audience found this discussion stimulating, that it opened up some new ideas maybe, and some new paths to explore. So for all of you watching us, we'll be bringing discussions like this each week to our LinkedIn profile. So please make sure that you follow Loomish Essays LinkedIn if you want to follow more discussions about fashion sustainability. Have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.